Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast for November 15th, 2024, episode 324. Stand-up comedian, actor, improviser, and dreamer, Paul Green, sharing my journey, thoughts, and insights on what it means to pursue my dream in hopes that perhaps you will pursue yours. And I'll tell you what, it is opening night, everybody, for the patent pending sketch comedy show. We wrapped our first show a couple hours ago, and overall, the show went very well. I was happy with how things turned out for the most part, and I think the audience enjoyed themselves. We had a packed house, which was really nice for opening night. Hopefully, we'll be able to sell out the next two nights, and it was very gratifying. As I had mentioned previously on a podcast, you just never really know. You never know if all of this work, all of the writing, the rehearsing, the costuming, the sets, the props, the lighting designs, the advertising, the marketing. I mean, so much work went into putting on this show. At the end of the day, you just never know if people are going to respond or think it's funny or have a good time or get offended or, I mean, you just never know. And our sketches can be a little edgy. There's some sketches with a little bit of edge in them. And overall, again, I think the show went very well. I would say with the exception of one sketch, which I happen to have a lead role in, and my character is just, gosh, do I even want to go down this route on this podcast? There was one sketch that I didn't think went particularly well, and particularly my character in that sketch. I had a really hard time figuring out a way to, the character is just not a very likable character to begin with, which is fine, but I struggled to find a way to make that comedic, every sketch is going to have a villain in it. And that doesn't mean that it can't be funny. So it was also the least rehearsed sketch. They threw it in like 2 weeks ago and gave me this role. And I didn't even have the script for a while. I literally memorized my lines for it this week. So, we got through the sketch fine. Everything happened the way that I think it was intended to happen. I just wasn't really able to find a way to make it work comedically. So I got a little in my head during that sketch, as I've also mentioned on previous podcasts. I still get a little anxious on stage if it's not going well. I still can get in my head. As a stand-up, if I don't really feel connected to the audience, or if I, do a couple jokes that don't really land as well as I think they should, or I don't think that the audience likes me or whatever. Oh, gosh. Why do I put myself through it, everybody? Because it's all part of pursuing the dream, which is putting yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable and trying to grow and expand and improve and try to find joy in all of this. That's the end goal, is find some joy and fulfillment. So that was opening night. Again, overall, very happy with it, and we'll see how the next two nights go. Other than that, my whole life has really been consumed by this sketch comedy show, and it'll be really interesting when it's all over come Sunday, because I will have a bit of a gap in my schedule, and so I'll want to sort of regroup and figure what I want to be focusing on next. So 2 more shows to go, 1 down, 2 to go, of the patent pending sketch comedy show. And any of you listening to this, if you want to come out and check it out, I encourage you to do so. Very funny show. So with that, I am going to switch gears already and talk about The Magic Mind, or Mind Magic, the self-help book that I have been reading and commenting on for these last couple of weeks. And today's chapter, another very interesting chapter, which gave me a lot to think about that I'm excited to share. So the chapter is called Embed Your Intention in Your Mind. Oh man, there is a lot to unpack on that statement right there. So if you follow the podcast, you know I've been talking about this book a lot, and it's written by a neuroscientist. And so he really incorporates a lot of technical jargon into his book, and talks a lot about brain function and how the brain works, and chemicals and neurons and the different lobes and the functions and the evolution of the brain. And for this chapter, I actually found the kind of technical jargon significant. I've had a hard time keeping track of it in previous chapters. I had a hard time keeping track of it in this chapter as well, but I was at least able to comprehend what he was talking about in terms of how the brain functions. And we spent a lot of time just talking about how the brain is really designed to be the most efficient at using and conserving the body's energy. And the challenge with that is a lot of that conservation of energy comes with the price of the brain is really only going to focus on whatever the task at hand is, whatever it is that we've trained it to focus on, and that it has a tendency to, how do I say this? It's always looking for the path of least resistance. Like, what is the path that's going to get the result that it is seeking with expending the least amount of energy possible to get there? Now, the problem with that is it means that as human beings, we have a tendency to miss so much other information that would be available to us if we had our brains sort of tuned in to look at it. But it's like, what's an analogy? It's like, think of a gigantic mural on like a wall. You ever seen like a gigantic brick wall, and some, artist has painted like a beautiful mural on it. And let's say it's a mural of like a garden, and, there's pets in there. There's dogs running around, and there's trees, and there's flowers, and there's a swing set, and there's a family over here. And, across the street, there's a house in the mural, so there's all of these different elements of the mural, right? So when our brain looks at that mural, it's going to really zero in on whatever it deems the most significant part of that mural is. So maybe one person looks at that and they only see a tree. Another person looks at it, they only see the dog. And then those two people see each other later and they go, "Hey, did you see that mural?" "Oh yeah, it was a mural of the tree." And then the other one goes, "No, it was a mural of a dog." When in reality, it was the mural of both. But one brain was, for whatever reason, trained to only see the tree, and the other brain was trained only to see the dog, because it was two brains that were conserving energy and were only interested, or trained, the brain was trained to only see what it was trained to see and look for. So what does that have to do with anything in pursuing dreams and pursuing what it is that you want in life? Well, to me, what I take that to mean is if we have a dream that we have really decided is important to us and what we really want, then we're in essence going to get our brain on our side, which means the brain is going to constantly be looking for opportunities um and reasons why that dream is possible. Because it's not only a matter of seeing what we want to see, it's also a matter of not seeing what we don't want to see. Right? So, well, this is kind of a personal example, and I'm a little embarrassed to share it. I'm going to be a little vulnerable. So a dream of mine has always been to be on Saturday Night Live. And I have been watching that show ever since I was a kid. And ever since I was a kid, I would go to school and I would reenact all of the SNL skits. I would reenact, for like my my friends at school and the teachers and whatever. I would go do Hans and Franz, or I'd go do motivational speaker, the Chris Farley motivational speaker, or whatever. Mike Myers, Wayne's World, the Sprockets, all of those characters. And that's something that I've always wanted. So I also have a pretty significant limiting belief that, like, oh, well, hardly anybody gets to be on Saturday Night Live. And, I'd already blown my chances. I'm too old, right? I had all of these negative limiting beliefs about the probability that I would ever be on the show. And for some reason, about a month ago, I was just thinking to myself, well, how many of those limiting beliefs are actually true? So one of my limiting beliefs was like, oh, I'm too old. Like Saturday Night Live they're always looking for whoever the youngest, hottest comedian is. Like my friend Michael Longfellow, who got booked on Saturday Night Live a couple of years ago, but he's like, I think it was like 27 or 28 when he got the show. And it's like, I'm already in my early 40s. I'm like, they aren't looking for me. Well, one night I just thought to myself, well, is that actually true? Am I absolutely too old to get on the show? So I just decided to look it up, and come to find out, there was a character, an actor who was booked when she was 47, I think, Leslie Jones. She was almost 50 when she booked Saturday Night Live. And then Daryl Hammond, who got booked to pretty much play Bill Clinton on Saturday Night Live in the late 90s and was on the show for many years, was about my age when he got booked. So it was something to where, like, I had already trained my mind to not even look at that as a possibility, right? Like the mural on the wall analogy, it's like Saturday Night Live was on one side of the mural and my brain couldn't even look at it. It could only look at this other side. But now, having challenged that, now I'm just trying to look at, oh, well, maybe it could happen. And sure, there's still plenty of things that would need to happen, and a lot of, big things would need to go right, and a lot of kind of miraculous experiences, but at least it's not impossible. It's not in the realm of impossibility. And just that little adjustment alone is just pure mindset. It's just a pure adjustment of me choosing what my brain is going to focus on and what it's going to see and what it's going to prioritize as important, right? Is it going to prioritize me looking at all of the reasons why this could never happen, or why it's unlikely that it's going to happen, or why it's rare that's going to happen? Oh, sure, I could train it to do that. And believe me, if that's what I train it to look for, it would find it, because there are plenty of counter evidence. There's plenty of counter evidence out there that it's just not going to happen. Or do I train it and embed in my brain my intention, which is to experience it and to actually have it happen for me, and to start to look for and to train my brain to look for opportunities and experiences and evidence that moved me towards my dream instead of moving me away from the dream. And the beautiful part is the same way that the brain is going to be trained to maybe seek out negative, or to seek out or to filter out whatever we tell it to filter out, well, then we can just as easily train it to filter out, negative thoughts, or to filter out thought processes or feelings, or even actions that are going to lead us away from what it is that we say that we want. So, embed our intentions in our subconscious, in our brain, so that our brain starts to seek out what it is that we are intending to experience in our life, and almost put it on a default. Get that energy conservation programming that our brains use, and get that working for us instead of against us. So, very interesting chapter, and yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. So that's my little encouragement, everybody, is take a look at what it is that your brain is focusing on. Do you have a tendency to only see the negative, to only see the evidence that is already confirming what you already think your life can only be? Or can you hijack that, put in some new programming, set a dream, set something that's in your heart that you really want, and start to train your brain to focus in on that, and to embed those intentions, and to focus on those, focus on the evidence and the opportunities that will start to appear and will start to become available, because your brain is looking for them. All right, everybody. Hope that gives you something to chew on. So I am going to go ahead and call it good for tonight, because I am exhausted, and I've got a long day tomorrow got my second show. And then after my second show, I'm actually heading back over to JP's Comedy Club for the late show. So I will be doing 2 shows tomorrow night. And that should be a lot of fun. All right, everybody. I love you all so much. Thank you for listening to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast for November 15th, 2024, episode 324. I hope your dreams are coming true. You're finding joy and fulfillment in the journey. I love you all so much, and I will talk to you tomorrow.